So, Neil,
Yeah.
we're back.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we could find our way.
I wasn't sure. I had to GPS it.
204 days since our last episode. Not necessarily something we're proud about, but we're back. We talk about that and more on this episode of Gravel Guru. Neil, we're back in the studio again.
We're here, Matt.
204 days since our last episode. A lot has happened in that time, but welcome to 2021.
It's good to be in 2021. Not that a whole lot's changed overnight, but it is good to be here. Good to be back in the studio.
You didn't feel that magical change at midnight where everything just the vacuum just took over?
I was asleep at midnight, Matt.
I don't believe you.
I'm old.
I believe you that you're old.
Yeah.
Not that you were asleep.
I was definitely asleep.
Fair enough. Well, it has been an interesting 8-9 months, year. What are some of the things you look back to? What's gone on in 2020? What hasn't gone on maybe in 2020?
Well, what hasn't gone on is this show, and clearly, a lot of people wondering where we're at, what's been going on, and it's been a busy year, Matt. I mean, from the get-go, we took off the year and it was busy as far as bikes. I mean, we started off 2020 very ambitious, I would say, with both our cycling goals, with the races and events that we were going to be. I mean, I was going to be out in California. I was going to be going to a couple other states. I kind of had some big plans, I guess you could say, as far as what 2020 was going to hold. And then March came and that all changed. And when that all changed, everything changed. My life changed. Your life changed. Our viewers' lives have changed. And it made it so that trying to find time to get in the studio or even time to Zoom was just not easy. It wasn't easy to put on a show that is a hobby for both of us ultimately. It was not easy to find the time or the desire to even want to sit here and talk. And it was also tough to talk because there wasn't a whole lot really in the cycling world that we could talk about. We didn't have races. We didn't have events. We weren't going out on big group rides. We weren't traveling to some of the places we were planning on travel to, and it made it tough. It made it tough.
Can I just say ditto? Yeah, 2020 was rough, and I guess before we really completely dive into this show's really kind of looking back at what 2020 was, what we did or didn't do here at Gravel Guru during 2020, and how we move forward into 2021. We have decided, I think Neil and I have planted our stake in the ground, that 2021, even with everything going on in society or whatnot, we're going to do better.
Yeah.
I think that is the number one thing starting off the show. 2021, we're going to do better. We're going to put out more content and move forward from there. We know how to do it, but diving back into 2020, 2020 was crazy. I can't help but laugh with 2020 at this point, now that it's 8-9 months ago, when we were headed down to MidSouth.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us could have ever guessed how that would happen, and that I would still say that didn't happen if the rain wasn't so bad, that everybody was kind of in a grumpy mood. But I want to give mad props to Bobby Wintle and his crew for pulling off a safe event down there. And really the one big gravel event we had in person in 2020. We had a great time down there, mainly because you and I didn't ride bikes that day.
Yeah, no, I stayed off the bike that day. I had zero desire to repeat 2017 there. So I stayed off the bike, helped out at the aid stations, which was awesome. Honestly, it gave me a totally different perspective of an event that I haven't seen before. Usually I'm on the bike. Usually I get to an aid station, I see my wife or the a little bit of a crew that I have there. And so to watch the front racers come through and how efficient their pits were, how efficient that stop, their crews, it was awesome to see that. But then to also witness people coming in that had just suffered, had just gone through pain for 50 miles, and some of them just saying, you know what, that's it, pull the plug, I'm done. Or some of them, they're like, I'm ready to go out and suffer for another 50 more and get through this. It was just awesome to get to see that interaction at the midpoint, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and obviously we're not just diving into MidSouth on this episode today, but it was so crazy to see. But I think to give perspective, last night I was in here getting the studio ready, and actually Neil's camera right here I pulled it apart. I was cleaning it. And I kid you not, there was red mud around the lens.
Just about spilling coffee.
There was red mud still on the cameras. And if that gives you any idea to what this year was like down there, it was just crazy.
Yeah, it was. But I think that was also ultimately a sign for what the next few months were going to become. Like I say, our 2020s changed. I took a step back from a lot of things because a lot did change. And certain things became more of a focus, more important for me. I spent a lot more time, as most of us I'm sure did, but with my family. I really made sure to give my kids that attention that they needed. This summer, I spent a lot of time teaching my son how to ride his bike. We went out on father-son camping trips. We spent some of that time together.
Can Lane outride you now?
The kid is up to, I think, 11 miles is his longest ride at 6 years old. So
what size are these wheels? Is he on a 29er yet?
No, he's on a 20-inch wheel. Yeah,
20
single
inch and
speed.
he's riding
Yeah.
11 miles on gravel.
On gravel, yeah. No, absolutely. Kids just destroying it, having a blast. Abigail, same thing. I mean, she's putting down some miles and having a good time on her bike as well. But my focus became spending time with them. I didn't want to be really in front of the camera, and we really quit doing anything. I mean, we had our last show in June, but we did film something on the 4th of July when we went out and rode. But after then, I didn't want to do anything with the camera because that's what my life had become. Most folks know, I mean, Instagram name's Minister of Gravel, but I'm actually a minister. And so I've spent 6 straight months talking to a camera, looking right at the camera, nonstop, a couple times a week. And
I will interject and say you've done a mighty fine job of it.
Thanks.
And if people don't know on the show, since we're kind of delving into our personal lives here, I've grown up in the church that Neil's a minister at here in Emporia, and that's how we got to know each other and how we got to riding bikes together. And as you're diving in to kind of your personal side here, I think it's important for me to say why I brought MidSouth up was that Thursday down there. My wife and I drove down there that Thursday. The rest of the crew came down Friday. The crazy stuff happened with the Thunder basketball game. Was that Wednesday night?
Yeah, Wednesday night. I was in Oklahoma City. My wife's family's from there, and so we were staying at their house when all of a sudden you get all that information coming about the NBA.
And I think my stress and where I'm diving into this is it's one thing for us all to take individuals down. You make the decision to go ride this race type deal. That was perfectly fine. I had such a hard time mentally when all this was going on, because I have 8 people there. I don't think a lot of people know when we do a show and we go down to something, whether it's Unbound here in Emporia or MidSouth down there, or even Gravel Worlds, we're booking multiple hotel rooms. We're taking multiple vehicles of people. And ultimately, we've got 5 or 6 communities represented just on those of us working on the show. And then on top of all of that, I spent most of the day Friday and Saturday afternoon in the hotel back in, I think we were in Perry. Is Perry the one north?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. In Perry there, because we didn't get a room because I booked too late in Stillwater, doing my actual day-to-day job. And my day-to-day job, I do PR, social media work for a local school district here. And if you can't imagine, I get a phone call Friday afternoon that we were canceling for Monday. By the time I got back for a 10 a.m. meeting Sunday morning in Emporia, we'd canceled for a full week. And so that really just took over. And that's where my focus had to be. Like Neil said, this is a hobby. Gravel Guru is a hobby on the show here, and they needed me there. They still need us where we are in our full-time roles. And
the thing is, our full-time roles both changed a whole lot. I mean, I hadn't filmed anything outside of this show in a long time. Now I have a background. A lot of people probably also don't know. I have a background. I worked in radio. My degree originally in college.
You've got a face for radio.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. but you know, I spent time with radio. I spent time filming and doing things like that back, in college. But it had been so long since I'd focused on, hey, I'm going to actually be the one responsible of filming or editing or putting something together. That's usually that's what you do for the show. So I haven't had to deal with any of that kind of stuff. And he did
put the notes together for this episode, though, and I'm eternally grateful for that.
But let me tell you, it was tough changing everything up. And the idea of then saying, let's find extra time to come in and talk to a camera some more, I'll just be honest, it just wasn't there for me. And I think if we would have done it, there's a good chance that we wouldn't be sitting here today doing this one. Or doing ones that are going to be happening moving forward.
Yeah. To be transparent, I think you hit the nail on the head there that every ride you and I have gone on, and it's important to remember, our riding has clicked down a substantial amount since summer, since virtual Gravel Worlds.
Yeah.
I think we maintained pretty well going into Gravel Worlds.
Yeah.
But we're still riding. I don't think I've rode with anybody but Neil. We kind of said we're our stable group during all this.
Yeah.
And that's why we're in the studio today with each other, is we're kind of each other's stable group. But I don't think a ride went on where one of us didn't make a comment like, man, we should get back in the studio. We want to do a show. But there's a certain point, and all of you that ride long distances know, and I have a feeling without a doubt that riding is your therapy time. You talk to that voice deep down inside of you. And quite frankly, that voice was telling me to keep riding and not pull my cell phone out. You're on social media enough during all of this. Keep riding. Focus on your own health during this. And that's why we weren't Instagramming as much. It's why we weren't on Facebook as much. And Facebook's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, well, and I took a 40-day break from any of that stuff back in the summer because, again, that became my form of communication with everyone at church. Instead of spending that time together or going to people's homes or the interaction that we would have in my normal day-to-day job, I was now putting all of that communication out for the most part through either social media, through the internet, through emails, and I didn't really feel like getting inundated with more of it on the personal side. And so I just had to kind of put it away for a little bit. But I'm ready to be back.
I am ready to be back. I think it's time to turn the page. And I think if you need anything from us here on Gravel Guru, my number one statement right now is 2021 is going to be better.
Absolutely.
We're going to work hard. We're going to provide content. But with that, you're going to hear me beg a lot. Please like, share, subscribe to our show, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all of those places. Because the way the algorithms are working now, if people don't like it, it's not being seen by anyone. I can look on our page right now, and we have 7,000 some followers, but we're 300 to 400 people are seeing each of our posts.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to grow the show and keep putting content out if only a couple hundred people see it.
Definitely.
And 17 of those views are my direct family.
Yeah, and your mom probably watched it at least 16 of those times.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's just put it out there for real. But that is a reality. I mean, we need that help. Sharing helps big time. That is something that, again, if you want to how can you help us out? Share it for sure. Like it. If we ask silly questions, which maybe sometimes we'll ask for questions for the show, or maybe we'll just throw other things out there, answer. Be a part of this. Make this our little community that we get to spend together on the Gravel Guru page, on the Minister of Gravel page, where we can kind of interact with each other, because that helps us moving forward when we do this show as well.
You know what's funny, Neil?
What?
Here on this script you made,
yeah,
you said that's 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We spent 12 on it.
That's okay. We can keep going.
This is just a rough
because the
outline,
reality
right?
is, yes, rough outline, Matt.
That's all this is right now, is
Look
a rough
at me.
outline.
This was my first shot at trying to do this, but what I do want to put out there, and something that you put off to the edge too, is even though we didn't pour out a ton of content as far as shows, I think we had 6 or 7 shows that we put out in 2020. We did 3 individual kind of longer format, I guess you could say, or maybe a short format compared to the show, but little videos of things that we're doing. So you put together one where you and me went bike packing. I put together one where I did the Macy's Apocalypse ride up there in Wabaunsee County. And then we rode together on 4th of July. And we were trying to still put out some content, but I think by the time we hit 4th of July, it had been about a month since we'd done our previous show. And again, it was wearing us out. And also, it wasn't too long before ultimately school started back up. And you got really busy again then.
So did you, though.
I did. Nope. I got busy having the kids home. You got busy because not only was school starting back up, but you have a production business that was doing a lot more work. And so we just had to kind of pull back again and say, how do we again move forward?
We went out in August, right?
Yeah.
Gravel Worlds virtual, 150 miles.
I think it was 115. 115. What are you talking about?
Well, you took several cracks at it because you like long rides.
I took 2 cracks at it, just to be clear. In case you guys didn't know, Gravel Worlds did an awesome event back in August, the Gravel Worlds virtual. They had the option to do 150, 75, or I think their shorter one of it's a 50K. And me and Matt were one of their celebrity professional rider groups that they put out there, alongside names like Allison Tetrick, Ashton Lambie.
I think we were the people on this list to make you all feel like anybody can go out and do it.
Yeah, definitely. And so
I have no problem being that person.
And so we got out there and we did that. And I mean, it wore us out. And then going out there a second time and doing it. And both of the 2 days that I went out there and did it, I had 110-degree days.
Some of us didn't need a second go.
And on to the grass is greener on the other side, 2021.
Moving on to 2021. Fair enough, Neil. We are moving forward. Grass is greener. Man, it's hard to just understand it's already 2021, though.
I can't believe it, really. You think sometimes 2020, you look at it and how long it seemed, but then the fact that also this year is
it flew
over. It really did. It went by quick.
I think the hard thing is we didn't have, like, if you look at a year as timelines, and we all have those big events we use, whether it's birthday parties, the holidays, 200-mile gravel events in your home community, the pilgrimage to Stillwater in March. When you take out Gravel Worlds in Lincoln in August at the beginning of the school year, and when you take those out, it makes it really hard and kind of jumbled together. When was that?
Those are the things that ultimately get us kind of from point to point. You kind of come into the year and it's everybody, we can't wait to see everyone in March, hang out down there at MidSouth, have a good time. And then, hey, we'll see you guys in 2.5 months or so when we get together up here in Emporia for Unbound. And then, hey, we'll see you guys in a little bit when we get together in Lincoln in a couple more months. And you kind of have those things that kind of, give you a sense, a feeling of what day of the week it is, what month of the year it is. And I still don't even know what day today is. I do know that we are in 2021 and it's January, but I couldn't tell you. I think it's a Friday. So, I mean, but things are...
It is, in fact, a Friday.
Yes!
But to be clear, now that I'm really thrown off this week, it's Friday when you're watching this. Today is not Friday.
It feels like a Friday.
So, but to be clear, if you're watching this, 2021 did happen, but we're not quite sure yet.
Correct. But anyway, so talking about 2021, what we got planned?
Redefining 2021.
Yeah, I think as I look to what my future of gravel and ultimately what our show as a future of gravel is going to be is there's going to be some changes compared to what we used to do. And I'm not saying what we used to do was bad, what we used to do was wrong. I just think what we're going to do is going to be different, at least in my perspective. I want to get focused a whole lot more on the adventure side. The things that ultimately kind of bring me joy, and I think, based upon from what interactions I've had with a lot of you out there, bring you joy too. The races and the events are cool. Those are awesome times. We love to get together. We love being around one another, but I also want to see what you're going through that's maybe difficult or challenging, or what you're experiencing that is new. And, as we put out those 3 videos that we put out there this year, the bike packing one, the Macy's one, and the 4th of July one, those got a lot of feedback. I think people really enjoyed seeing a format kind of like that, where we're showing you what we're doing, how we're doing it, kind of more hands-on, not necessarily always sitting here in the studio. Not to say that we won't have the studio aspect of the show maybe leading into some of those videos.
Oh, no, we're going to have the studio.
Oh, I know.
Oh, yeah.
We're having the studio.
I mean, we built this. This is the 6th season, 6 years we're starting out here in this studio, which is crazy. But do you remember how excited we were when we filmed the 100th episode last year? And we brought in not 1, but 2, but 3 cameras to do the show on the fly. We started it, and then all of a sudden people were like, you can't be in the same room together, guys.
And then we were Zooming the 100th episode instead of meeting here together and enjoying it.
Truth.
It was crazy.
Yep. But redefining 2021, yeah, adventure, exploring, bike packing. If there's anything I want to do on this show this year, is I want to show people that you can have fun on a gravel bike exploring in your own backyard.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important we understand we live in the great place to ride gravel roads. But we're going to show how you can do stuff like this in your own town, your own community. And understand, I look at gravel and the term gravel as not necessarily getting out here on the crushed limestone Flint roads of Lyon County, Chase County, Wabunsee County. Like, yes, that is amazing. That's glorious to be out there. But for me, the term gravel, and this is gravel, is about getting out and exploring back roads, kind of the unbeaten path, and moving forward on that. one thing we want to do to kind of help push us there is, do you want to dive into this? This was an idea we kind of saw on Instagram from somebody.
Yeah, so one of the things that we both really enjoy doing, we love bike packing. We both have all the good gear to go out and bike pack. We posted that video back in May, I want to say it was, when we went out there and we did some bike packing. But we both say we don't do it nearly enough. And so Matt and I have put a goal out there, and ultimately I would say you guys as the viewers hold us to these goals. That is something I think that's important. When you share a goal with somebody, that those people that hear that goal hold the people that are setting it to it. Matt and I want to spend 12 nights under the stars bike packing here this year.
12 nights under the stars. And I think the important thing is we want to see you doing this too. 12 nights under the stars bike packing. And again, I've gone on some awesome bike packing trips. You've gone on some awesome bike packing trips. I mean, we've gone over the Continental Divide in Colorado for an overnighter. We've spent 3 or 4 days on the Katy Trail. But ultimately, some of the most fun events have been 10 miles up to Redding Lake or down to Opie, all right here and on a work night.
Yeah, we've got enough places that are close that we can do this. We can do this reasonably. We've got, like you say, Redding Lake, which is where we did our video back in May at. We can go down to Opie, which is 10 miles south. We've got, if we want to go a little bit further out to Chase County or up to Council Grove, we've got tons of places within probably 35 miles here of town that we can get out to, that we can spend a night at, that we can enjoy that being out in nature, adventure feeling that we have. And then, like you say, at least for a couple of those places, we could get back up and be in the office if we needed to at 8 or 9 o'clock the next morning and have zero problem with it. So we want to do this.
Absolutely. So 12 nights under the stars. Is that one a month, or what are you thinking there?
Some of these months, I don't know if I would like to say yes. I honestly, okay, if you ask me real, yes, I want to do one a month. I also know that certain months might be more difficult than others. There's going to be maybe months where we don't have the weather that we want. There might be months.
Are you saying we do, in fact, live in Kansas?
Correct. I'm saying that there's going to be months where life is just out of control crazy. November's for me, the church that I work at, we do a huge community Thanksgiving meal. We did that even this year through the pandemic in a very safe drive-through format, but that takes up a majority of my month working, planning with other individuals within our church, and if we get to a safe enough point.
What is your coldest temperature you're willing to sleep out at night right now?
I don't know if my sleeping bag's really meant to be under 30.
Okay.
So above freezing.
That's kind
right
of my
now.
threshold. Is that freezing?
I'd have to go buy newer, I think, equipment if I said let's go below freezing.
Sounds like a pretty good excuse.
It does sound like a good excuse, but I have to convince my wife of buying new equipment.
Okay, fine. So, anyways, 12 nights under the stars. We'll start hashtagging some stuff around that way. Look for more information on that coming up on the show. There might be a lot of more short little videos. It might just be little clips of us standing on the side of a gravel road because we came up with a great idea while we were riding one evening to share this with you. So look for little clips. You know, when I started the show, I really wanted everything to be super professional, polished looking, but I understand now the way we consume information, it doesn't always have to be that way. Right now, I think we're so zoomed out, Skyped out, hung out, whatever platform you're using right now to virtually meet. Hopefully you're still watching this show and find this a little bit of entertainment, whether you're on the train or whatnot, listening in your headphones while you're at work during the day. We're going to try to share a little more snippets here and there. We're going to share ideas. We might share a poll. Hey, what would you rather see us do? Go here or here? You know, you've probably seen most of our videos I think we shared have been up from Redding Lake area. So where would you like to see us go next? And moving forward on that. But speaking of moving ahead, you've got some Q&A for us. Definitely got some Q&A. We asked viewers out there, hey, what is it that you need to ask us? What is it that you're curious about when it comes to anything, really? One of the questions we already kind of answered, where have you guys been? And we kind of talked about that. But we had some... To be clear, if you want the honest, where have I been? Not many places. That's definitely true. So question, first one here that I've got from a viewer, just getting started into gravel 2021, or how do you train, just getting started into gravel here in 2021. How do you train for long events?
If it's coming to me, I mean, depends again on what we want to define as long events, because I think that's different ultimately for everybody else. So first of all, it's defining what your long is. For some people, like you say, that might be 25. That could be 50. That could be 100 or 200. As ultimately that number gets up, your training, one, time on the bike needs to get higher, but two, your planning as far as how you're going to handle checkpoint to checkpoint, how you're going to handle your nutrition. Your nutrition becomes a whole lot more important, 50 versus 25 or 100 versus 50. Yeah.
Can I just say, I think you're diving in really deep to this question.
Yeah.
Because when I look at, and I'm going to read it again, just getting started into gravel events, how do you train for long events? I looked at this as the training and understand we're in January.
Yeah.
We're in January, and a lot of the long events start March, April, May out there. Right now, if I was looking, and let's just call it a century. Yeah. I think a century is a good goal for anybody to get started in. We don't have to look at every event. You've got to go for 200, 300, 350 miles, 150. But let's just say a century. Consistency. I think that's how you train for these long events. And that means I'm a big fan of setting a weekly mileage goal. If I'm training for something, whether that's 100 miles, whether that's 50 miles, and understanding we could go out and knock out a 50-mile ride once a week and say that if that's our goal is 50 miles a week.
Yeah.
But consistency. Going 3 or 4 days a week, just getting the seat time and building up there and building it into your routine that, man, it's Thursday. I don't have enough miles yet for this week before it resets on Sunday or Saturday night or whenever you say it. And building towards that goal of consistently being on the bike multiple days a week. I think it's really hard to go and train for an event once or twice a week.
No, absolutely. The saddle time, when I say that, yeah, we could go out and you could ride a 50-mile ride in one ride and call that training, and that's fine. But I would say spend the days. I know in January usually, which is where we're at here when I start off my year and it comes to training for my first event, usually which ends up being MidSouth. Last year we went down to Growler. But my whole thing to start off a year is usually 3 to 4 days on the bike a week. That doesn't mean I have to be 30 miles a ride. I could be going out for 10 miles or 15 miles or maybe even 20, but that 3 to 4 days so that ultimately some of those saddle spots and other discomfort spots that I usually feel that we're feeling right now can get worked out.
Correct.
Because if that's not worked out, those 40-mile rides, those 50-mile rides are going to be really uncomfortable when I'm able to do those.
Yeah. Shout out to Craig down there at Growler. Put on an awesome event in February. Deserves all the praise he can get. I found out that where I ride around here is actually really flat compared to that area of Oklahoma too. But it was a really great day looking back.
It was an awesome day.
There were some very dark spots for me out there. I think Neil wanted to leave me several times, and I think that was probably both of us.
That day we went back and forth. I started off the day a little rough. You ended the day a little rough, but we worked through it. Had a good time riding together and filming that together.
Correct. Video. That was another one of the videos we put out this season. Gravel Growler at the beginning. Looking back, could you imagine how things have changed since then? The way we were running there, and
well, we were joking about the other day on the bike. I mean, at Gravel Growler back in February of 2020, I was diving handfuls, up to here deep. 60 miles into a ride into a bucket full of pretzels, putting them in my top tube bag and not caring whose hands were diving deep into that bucket of pretzels before me to eat them. And now we put everything in baggies.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how you answer that one. But we're here. So I think we answered that question. Consistency, getting out, short little rides if that's all you can find time for. And they don't have to be long rides.
Yeah, but again, as you move forward, I think the planning part, and that maybe is a little deep, but the planning part is important.
I think that's a whole show in itself.
Absolutely.
Is the planning portion. And we have lots of content on that if you dig in our archives.
Yeah. Next question on there. We're going to look forward, right? Looking forward to what 2021 is going to be. So this question comes, what will 2021 start lines look like as it relates to social distancing? And I think we've seen probably some of this already in some events that have tried to happen later on in the summer and ultimately into the fall.
Yeah, I guess my reaction to this one, what will starting lines look like in 2021? And I think this is really cliche to say, but the answer to this one is look back over the last 9 months and figure out how many times things have changed at a moment's notice. But ultimately, when I look at it, make sure you're doing your research on what the events have put out. MidSouth already has, and I've got it pulled up on a tab here on my computer, a COVID-19 safety protocols where they've put the basic information out right now. But I think, and this is my PR side of me saying this now, is what will 2021 start lines look like as it relates to social distancing? I hope they look like what the race director asked us to look like.
Absolutely.
I think it's ultimately these race directors are going to have so many eyes on them, whether it's their insurance company, the local community, the local health department, the EMTs, everybody there.
Maybe even some of the racers that show up.
Maybe some of
the
the
racers
racers
looking at it like, hey, you're not holding people to what you said you were going to hold them to.
And maybe people that go, I'm not going to this first event this year because I want to see how people handle it there to decide if they're going to later events in the year. I think it's important that we just do what we're asked to do.
We all want to get back to what we had before. We all want to get back to being able to get crowded up before a race. We're shoulder to shoulder, jammed in there, getting ready to all try to exit 2,000 people out at the beginning of MidSouth or Unbound or whatever big race that you go to. And we're not, a lot of races we saw did staggered starting, where if you think that you're in the race to compete to win, we're going to do chip timing, but you better get out there early and you better be part of that early group. Everybody, that's why I grabbed this earlier, had to wear a face mask. Out of most races that I saw, at least when they were getting started, you had to at least have that on for the first bit, or some races said till we hit gravel. Most of us that ride gravel have buffs that we've gotten from different events. We've been getting those back for a long time.
We all wore buffs before they were the cool thing to wear.
Yes, I wore my buff quite often riding my bike when it was cold, when it was dusty, because I didn't want all the dust getting in sometimes that would get in there and cause havoc for an entire race. And so these are things that we have. These are things that all of us can easily do, I would say. And again, it ultimately helps our race directors. Our race directors took a hit. Took a hit in 2020.
Yes.
And some of them might not have races even being able to go forward in the future because of the fact they weren't able to race in 2020. And so let's do our part to make sure that if they ask us to stagger, if they ask us to wear a mask, if they ask us to keep our distance, when we're in the corral to get started,
we just do it.
Do it.
And I think that's what it comes down to. The gravel community is an awesome community to be a part of. We're all considerate of others. Think about how many times you've had a flat on a gravel ride or gravel event and people stop to help.
Yep.
It needs to be that same mentality with the health now of what can I do? How can I do my part to make sure the next event happens or this event happens safely? And I think that's probably that to wrap up that question. Is
Absolutely.
Just help everybody around you, help these event promoters, and help ensure that we have more events going on into the future. Question 3.
How has 2020 changed the future of gravel? Well, this is a conversation that Matt and I had before
Growler.
Yeah.
On the way down. And I think that was probably one of the best things about Growler, in all honesty, was it gave us 3.5, 4 hours in a car each way at the beginning of last season to go through some ideas. We stopped and talked to Bobby Wintle at his shop about the name change going on down there and that transition, which was probably eye-opening and helped us navigate some other things later on in the year. But we had this conversation with some industry people we know, whether they're athletes or paid for by the industry, work in the industry, and before COVID, pre-COVID.
Before any of that.
Gravel was changing this year.
These conversations, would say, actually, we started having probably back in even November and December of 2019.
I think we can look back to we had these conversations in July of 2019.
Yeah.
If you really want to dive down and put a date on when we had these conversations, is gravel was changing, but it's not changing everywhere.
And it's changing in different ways, I would say, too. And so you saw, obviously, a big boom come in gravel. Big boom that was taking place within 2019. Corporate entities, you saw power rankings, you saw... I know.
I about spit my coffee out on the power ranking thing.
You saw a lot of crazy things starting to take place that all of a sudden made you feel like you were watching ESPN, or you thought that... And by the way, I had a Mount Crushmore. That was meant to be very tongue-in-cheek. That was meant to have a little bit of fun, to poke some at some monuments that were out there.
You say this, but there were some people, though, that took it
very seriously. And so what I was seeing in gravel was we were getting very serious. All of a sudden, everybody was getting hyper-competitive. The races were being put on by, again, bigger entities. People were demanding more and more and wanting more and more out of their events. And all of a sudden, we were sitting there, and as we're seeing UCI or United States Cycling talking and all these other things happening, dude, there's going to be, we saw also this stirring of people getting, saying, no, what, this isn't gravel and this is not what we're doing. And all of a sudden, then on top of that, boom, we got dropped this pandemic. And I really believe what we're going to see in 2021 and what's going to happen is the little guy's going to get love again. Those small community races are going to be having turnouts, and people are going to go to that small community race. I put a poll on my Instagram back a few months ago and asked folks kind of just that question. I asked people that they plan on going to races in 2021, and 80% of the people were like, absolutely, for sure. But then you ask them about, are you going to go to the big races? And sometimes it was like 30%. We're going to the big races.
Would you say, because you did this on Instagram and you can see who answered what at times, those people that chose the 30 to 50% maybe not going to some of the big ones that we shook their hands, hung out with at these events in the past?
These are, I would say, all people, but again, 30% that even said 30% said they were going.
Correct.
And so, I mean, you're talking 70% that said, no, we're not going to the big ones. And these are people, again, that, yes, I know personally that are probably watching right now. Folks that are on all different ranges of skill level, by the way. These are some folks that compete for podium spots and some that don't. And they're like, we're not going to do the big thing.
Correct.
And the thing is, for multiple reasons.
It's multiple reasons, but I think it's also worth saying you need to go to the event that's right for you. We're not here trying to persuade one event or the other. Because the thing is we talk about, I wrote down, you used the term small guys, these small events out there. And I think that means so many different things to so many different people. Because you can look at LaGrind being a small race here locally, but also when we talk about being smart and where are we going this year and travel expenses here and there, understand I could do Unbound and sleep in my own bed. Yeah. Like it's 6 blocks from my house. So that might be something that we consider a small event, which is funny to say in itself, but it's our hometown event. You might go do the 25, the 50, the 100, the 200, the 3. I'm not doing the 350.
No, I'm not doing the 200 either.
Understand that the small guys or the local, the grassroots means so many different things to so many different people, and we're not going to sit here and define.
No, I'm just saying, what a lot of people said, and again, you can break down the comments because I was able to look in, because I asked people, okay, you said you're not going to these. Why? Why are you not? And there was a lot of reasons, absolutely. Part of it was very much pandemic related, but a lot of people were just like, look, we're going to stay closer to home. We're going to do the local event. We're going to help support these folks. Maybe travel restrictions aren't open. A lot of other things. But yes, it's ultimately easier to do that local event. It's easier to support that local cause maybe that you know, or those local individuals that you know, people that you're close with, people that you're friends with. And so while I don't know exactly personally what 2021 races will look like, I think the future of gravel, you're going to see a lot of those small races shining. Let's put it that way. And when I do say small races, I'm talking the races that have 300 or less participants. You're going to see, I think, a lot of people getting into their local events, getting into that smaller event, taking place, taking part of their 2021 and putting it towards that, where you might not see everybody rush to go to what we traditionally look at as the big monument races. But
I still will sit here today on January 1st and say those events are going to sell out.
Oh, absolutely. People are going to be at them, without a doubt. You can look at MidSouth's registration. There's 2,000 plus people that'll be down there. So people are still going.
This is something we talked about last season. I'll give a shout out to Jason with Gravel Cyclist. He does a really good job at a gravel calendar out there on his website. We talked about how literally there's not a weekend in the U.S. you can't go be at a gravel event. And I think this is going to be a year it pays off. The fact is there's going to be a lot more. There's also some events that aren't going to happen that probably happened in the past just because financial reasons that they got hurt this year and might not recover. Yeah. So we have to look at that and understand a lot of these events are not for profit or they're raising money for a good cause in their community. I look at what Ryan Dudley did up in Eskridge. Yeah. Right, Eskridge. Raising money for the Maisie's pool, Maisie Devour. She collected aluminum cans for years because she wanted to build a swimming pool for that community. And just moving forward, he kind of carried it as a goal to raise money for that. And I think the event got really big, honestly, for the scale of that town.
Yeah, huge.
It started out as buddies getting together to ride on a weekend.
Eskridge is literally a one stop sign town.
It's one stop sign.
Stop sign. Yes.
So, looking at those events, what events like those can you go do in 2021 and move from there. I'm going to jump us ahead in the next question, Neil.
Okay.
Should we continue to avoid group rides because of COVID? I think this is a quick answer, and it comes back to what I said earlier. You got to do what's right for you. Do what's right for your community. If you roll up on people and they're wearing buffs, make sure you're wearing your buff too to help protect them. And this is all so different everywhere. We're not medical experts. We're not.
Correct. I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a scientist. I'm a minister, and it is different absolutely for everyone else. Communities are all 100% different out there.
If we look at this, should we continue to avoid group rides because of COVID? There's some places that they haven't avoided group rides, in all honesty.
And haven't had to really because there hasn't been much of an issue there. We look here, for a very long time within Emporia, group rides did not happen. In fact, the last group ride that I was on was for your birthday, right before we went down to MidSouth that week.
Very good point.
A group of us got out back in the beginning of March and went and rode bikes together. And then I haven't been on a ride with more than a small handful of people. I think maybe 3 people is the most we've had on a ride, us and Dustin, I think maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Occasionally we've run across other people here and there, but I also know that our community early on saw a pretty high spike because we do have some packing plants and other things within this town that kind of seem to drive some of that. But then here, as of just even, a month and a half ago, we spiked up towards 700 cases within this small little community. If you guys have been here before for Unbound, for DK races in the past, you know how small Emporia really ultimately is. We're not talking about Kansas City. We're not talking about Wichita. We're not talking about Chicago or New York. We're talking about a small little community here with over 700 active cases at a time. That was a signal, I think, to everybody that the group rides kind of seem to stop. And we haven't, at least what I've seen, haven't really seen a whole lot of that stuff rolling through the month of November or December. I know it's colder months.
I was going to say we usually fall off in the winter a little bit.
But we still, every now and then, will drop a post, hey, let's get together and let's ride, before Christmas.
Now,
or let's ride after Thanksgiving.
Understand this is coming out on New Year's Day, and you and I usually do a ride on New Year's Day.
Yep.
And there's a chance that we're going... The weather does not look good, Neil. There's a chance we're going out for a New Year's Day ride, but it's probably just going to be the 2 of us.
Yeah.
In years past, we've gotten together behind the bike shop, got a group together, but we understand that's what we have to do to help protect each other and be courteous of each other.
And again, it's all, like you said, it's all based upon your community. I mean, every single one of us, we live in a different community, and your community right now might not really be having much of an issue. We have a lot of people I know that are out there in a small community that watch the show. And if in your community, cases are down, hospitals aren't overrun, be respectful of each other. People are probably going to get together and do group rides.
Yeah.
If you're in places where they're telling you to not do that, where it's not safe, or where it ultimately is going to add to the problem, again, it's different for everyone. Use your own wisdom in it.
Absolutely.
The thing is, I want to get back to being able to do group rides as commonplace. I want to get back to doing races as commonplace. And I miss that kind of stuff. And sure, could I have participated in it? Absolutely. Do I also know that within our community, cyclists did end up getting sick this past year?
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't want to spend 2 weeks on the bench. I don't want to.
Correct.
I don't want to do that.
Next question.
Yeah.
Do you want me to take this one? You want to take this one?
You go ahead and read this one.
Okay. What's the vibe like in Emporia about the state of things? Well, COVID numbers are down right now.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what they're asking about?
Possibly. I mean, our COVID numbers are down. Our cases are pretty low again. It's nice.
I have a feeling this one's talking about the name change of our local event, Unbound Gravel here in Emporia.
Yep.
And I guess I'll come out and say that it's kind of awkward at times. But with that said, we're supporting everybody at that event. We love that event and the people there. But it's awkward because, like Neil just got done talking about, we haven't had group rides to talk about this type of stuff on.
Yeah, you haven't had much time to work it out, to talk about it with people. I mean, yeah, some here, some there. You see people out and about around time because it is a small community. And so, you have those conversations. But it's been a big change. And what I think people have to understand, okay, within our community, the response is going to be different than on both sides of it than it is going to be out within the greater cycling community. I mean, even within the greater cycling community, you see some back and forth responses, but you have to realize and remember that this has been a part of our community here for 15 years and then some. DK was a huge part of our community for 15 years, whereas some of you maybe even only heard about the event in the past year or two. And so it's something that is just dropping on your radar, where this has been a part of our lives. This has become a cycling goal. When it comes to that race here in town, we have usually over 400 local people within a small community coming out to this race to take on either the 25 or the 50 or the 100 or 200 or XL.
I think for perspective there, you talk about like 400 plus local people involved in this race.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got started in cycling, and it was after the freshman year in high school type deal. So sometime around 2005, 2006, I did Bike Across Kansas. I did it with my now father-in-law. And literally you could count the cyclists in Emporia on your hands and maybe have to go to your toes. But that was it. Like, I remember going to the Opie Down Home Fun ride. That was my first organized ride I ever did. I had a brand new Trek 3700. And I could not believe how much money I spent on it. Neil, I spent $350 on a bike, and I could not believe it. That was the most expensive bike, and honestly, as a high schooler, it was probably the most expensive thing I owned at that point in life, because I wasn't into cameras and expensive bikes yet.
Don't ask how much my wheels cost or drivetrain now.
Yeah, but there were 13 of us on that ride, and I will come out and admit, Matt Slater was a big part of that ride. Rusty down there was a big part of it, but I remember Matt Slater specifically because he was with the National Guard at that point and hauled me out because I needed sagged out on a 13-mile ride.
Happens to all of us.
Now, it was raining in a minimum maintenance road and a brand new bike, so my mind wasn't quite there. But, I
hadn't learned how to hike a bike yet?
No, hadn't learned. It hailed on that ride. My father-in-law hate me, but he'd just gotten clipless pedals, and it starts hailing and forgot to unclip and fell over in the mud. So, but that's how we got started in it. And understand the DK at that point was still in a motel parking lot with 20-some people.
Yeah.
So with us, it's going to take time. And I'm trying to be as respectful as I can on the name change. And it's hard in this town because we understand the name change needed to happen. I will say
Absolutely.
Right here on the show, the name change needed to happen. So I'm going to try my best to call it Unbound Gravel, just like I refer to the event in Stillwater as MidSouth.
Yeah.
If you come to Emporia, there's 20-some thousand people that aren't a part of this event here locally and probably don't know a whole lot about it, but they love seeing cyclists, disc golfers, all of these people here in Emporia. So they're going to ask you about this name of an event, and they're not trying to be offensive. They're not stuck in their ways. They just don't understand what happened. They don't understand the conflict around it.
Or they might not even know that it changed.
Correct. They might not know that it changed ultimately. So bear with us here locally as this change. As we get out, the group rides start happening, the name will start morphing in, Unbound will sound natural, but after 15 years, it's hard to get used to.
It is. It's going to be hard to get used to. It's going to be, I think, difficult for most people within this community to get used to. It's going to be difficult for our cycling community, I'm sure, even to get used to, because there is still a part of our cycling community that says, why change it? There's another part of it that is very adamant that it needs to get changed. People are going to cry things like cancel culture or other things, but we also have to realize that there are things that have gone on within our society as a whole that have been offensive to people for a very long time, and we've just simply overlooked them, whatever they be. And we can look at that, obviously, on the bigger scale in the sports world and see how sports teams are starting to change their names, how they're starting to realize that. And it shouldn't be a surprise that it's also going to hit things that might have a negative impact on other people as well, and folks are going to say, you know what, that name has been offensive to me. And understandably, it probably was. Was that ever the intention by the race directors? Absolutely 100% I would say no. I could be wrong in that, but I don't think that when that race was founded that they were saying, you know what, we're going to put together a race where we're going to be offensive to people in the name of it.
Yeah.
However, after stepping back, you realize, you know what, if somebody was to call me a dirty something or I was to call somebody else a dirty something, there's going to be offense in that. Mm-hmm. And when we realize that, you do the right thing and you change it. You fix it so that you don't do that. We've heard it. We've hurt each other enough this past year through a wide variety of things. Why keep moving on, hurting one another? Let's do things that are going to build each other up, encourage each other, bring more people into the community. And my hope is that as adults, we can move through it and we can get used to Unbound. and we can love Unbound.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit it. Don't do something that's going to hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a theme of this episode. You got to do what you can to help the community right now. And really, I know we're rambling because we'd never done a 45-minute take before. But honestly, this is probably the therapy you and I needed to get out here and express some of our thoughts. We've talked about these a lot on the bike and whatnot, moving forward with it. But we just have to air this stuff, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of these conversations. I really hope we don't talk about the rest of the season, in all honesty.
No, absolutely. We have talked about some of these things in private for a very long time. You and I have, and they've even been difficult conversations in private with you and I. And they were also, I would say, if you really want to get down to it, part of the reason shows stopped about the time shows stopped too, if we want to be real. Because it was tough, because how do you talk about it? Especially within our community, because people don't realize what that race means here within this community. You don't realize how that keeps our small little downtown going. The places that you like when you come here, whether it be the coffee shop, whether it be the 3 different bike shops we have, whether it be all the small little restaurants we have, the millions of dollars that get poured into this community over a 5, 6, 7 day period ultimately keep a lot of those businesses going. And it means a lot to the people that are here in this community to see the riders come in, to see them be a part of this.
And you talk about that economic impact that one weekend, but and it's, again, different right now. But in a normal year, you wouldn't drive downtown on a Saturday and Sunday and not see an out-of-state car with a bike rack empty.
Oh, yeah.
Because they park downtown outside Mulready's or somewhere, and they're off on a 50-mile ride enjoying the day.
Yeah.
So you have to think about the impact that it brings. And when we talk about the impact of the event, we would not be here. This show would not be here if this event didn't happen.
I would not be on a bike probably, because that's what kind of got me going. Friends talking about riding, getting out, and all of a sudden I found this love for gravel, and I'd put 100 miles out there as a goal, and all of a sudden I fell in love as I got further and further out.
Correct. So anyways, we're learning to change. We're learning to adapt. We're moving forward. Final question. Do you want... Nope. Two questions. We're going to make this one quick.
Yep.
I'll ask it first. What was your favorite 2020 quarantine-style race/event? And it is Gravel Worlds Virtual. Jason, Craig, Corey, the whole crew up there absolutely crushed it with that.
The selfless, the fact that they weren't raising it to fill their pockets so that they could make 2021 happen. The fact that they were doing it for someone else to help people out.
It also helps that I finished my longest ride to date, 150 miles. But what really makes it great is... we both donated. Part of the event was a donation to the Lincoln Parks Foundation, I think is the name of it, in the name of Randy Gibson, who was tragically killed in an accident up there. But the letter, and I now follow the Lincoln Journal or whatever on Facebook, or they follow me now since they have my information. What they did and what the gravel community came together and raised to finish the one shelter house. But then there's money going to, I think, another drinking fountain and another park, one of the trail system, just getting all of this stuff. And yet, Gravel World still had sponsors willing to give stuff away. They still put on a heck of an event.
Yeah.
I have no, we're going to get Corey, Craig, the whole crew on later in the season to talk about that event in general, because I think, or maybe we go up and visit them. We need to talk about how that event happened, and that's a whole show in itself.
Yeah.
Would you agree with me on the best virtual?
No, absolutely. I mean, again, what they did, I think, was fantastic. And again, the fact that it was simply to help people out. I mean, to help out the Gibson family, like you say, to get that shelter that, built on the trail. And I can't wait till it's done. It's built, and we can go up there and see that.
And we talk about community a ton in the gravel scene is community. And I will tell you, the way they did this event and kept us informed, and the way the Lincoln Parks mailed us a letter after the donation came back, or an email, and told us what had been achieved, I truly felt like I'm a pseudo part of the Lincoln cycling community.
Yeah, and it was awesome. Again, I didn't do a whole lot of the virtual events. I did probably a small handful, I think 4 or 5, but that one was by far, one, the best run one, but 2, what it did, in my eyes, sets it above and beyond anything else that was done.
Okay, final question.
This is quick, too.
This will be very quick. Will it be muddy for MidSouth if the event is in person and dry if it's virtual.
100%.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
100%. If you have to be there, it's going to be muddy.
The 2 years that I rode a single speed at MidSouth, it was dry. This last year, I didn't have a single speed bike anymore. I put gears on it. I also did not ride in it because I didn't want to destroy the bike because it was muddy.
Ultimately, I hope we get to have a conversation about the week before if it's going to be muddy for folks down there because we'll still get it wrong, just like we did last year. But I hope when we get to March, it's a problem we're worrying about. I hope we're worried about getting together. Well, not worried about getting together, but I hope we're talking about getting together and having that family reunion come spring and move on from there. Speaking of a family reunion, guess what time it is?
It's time to see what you've been doing.
Let's take a look and see where you've been riding. As always, share these on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those networks out there. Email them to me, matt@gravelguru.com. If you're not on social media, but you want to get your ride featured, send them to me. Let's take a look at where people have been riding. First up, we've got this photo from Nick Blades up in the snow of Minnesota. Just moved up there from Oklahoma. Definitely not gravel, but says it's still a lot of fun. I bet there's some gravel underneath there, Nick. Thanks for sharing. Anthony sent in this second photo of the day from riding somewhere near Cole Camp, Missouri. Thanks, Anthony. Glenn sent in this photo riding some tiny gravel fat bike style. Today it was on the 27 5x3 near Smithville Lake Trails, Missouri. Got it in 32 miles. Thanks as always, Glenn. We can always count on you to send in a photo. Brent Findlay sent in some photos of the Arkansas High Country route, out getting some miles in. The Arkansas High Country route really looks like an awesome place to ride, somewhere we're going to have to explore before long. Ryan Ashby was out riding Badger Creek Trail near Fall River, Kansas. Great job, Ryan. Robert Helms was out on the wind-swept wilds of Manitoba, Canada. This was just a short ride, he says, 32 kilometers. Temps were in the negative 20 degrees Celsius with a strong north wind to make it challenging. Awesome job, Robert. You're probably a little bit more dedicated than I would be up there, but awesome. Thanks for sending in the photos. Kevin Bonebreak out for a short spin with friends in Lyon and Coffee County, Kansas. Scott Johnson was out riding in Seminole County, Oklahoma. Look at those washboards. And Josh Kappelman was out riding frozen gravel outside of Waterloo, Iowa last week. Great weather for a metric in December. Again, thanks as always to everybody that submitted those photos. We love seeing them. And when we're not together as a community right now, I hope you take the time, especially in our Facebook. It makes it pretty easy to go through and see where we post these each week. And I'm going to get better about posting on there and asking the questions. But it warms my heart. It makes me feel good to see where people are riding. It also makes me feel weak because there's people riding in a lot more snow than you are.
I was going to say, you say it warms your heart. It freezes my heart seeing some of the pictures of where people have been riding. The older I'm getting, the less I want to be in the cold, Matt.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that.
Yeah,
I feel like any response gets me in trouble there. But we do love seeing where you're riding. Absolutely. Please keep sharing. Keep posting the pictures. Bonus points if you submit photos of kids on bikes, because we love seeing kids on bikes. That goes for you too.
Yep.
We want to see Lane, Abby out there, the whole family on the bike. And I don't care if it's a ride around the block. All these rides don't have to be crazy, but people have gorgeous places. They have awesome rides right in their own backyard, and that is going to be one of our goals here for 2021. Parting thoughts.
It's good to be back. You guys missed us. You wanted some more. Well, guess what? You got a whole lot more. This is probably the longest episode, Matt, we've ever rolled out.
Yeah, this is probably the longest episode. But, hey, you all said a few of you said you missed us. There's a few that I'm sure didn't miss us.
Let me tell you, I know you guys missed me.
Yeah.
Face for radio.
As always, please, the biggest way you can help us out with keeping the show going, like, subscribe, share. We said something you didn't like, feel free to drop us a line. We say something you did like, drop us a line. As always, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, matt@gravelguru.com. Make sure you're checking out gravelguru.com. Even though there hasn't been content there in 6 months, there will be now. Lots of new ideas coming out. So as always, thank you. Watch for our next episodes. See you again.